place when I was originally doing the research. And it looks from all the records as if my father never returned to Lambsdorff. He then spent the next 5 years in this coal mine, which had the prefix E, which meant English, E for English, 72, which was a large coal mine situated just outside the town of Buton, as it was. And my father was really unlucky with that coal mine because it was run very brutally. Production was the key. It didn't really matter about casualties or they had Russian and Polish slave workers there as well as British POWs. And although the British POW contingent was treated slightly better, they were still expected to work 12-hour shifts 7 days a week, whether or not they were ill. It must have been a really, really harsh regime.
Yeah, I can't think of any. Sorry, Charles, I was going to say I can't think of anything worse myself. I remember as a school child, we went on a visit to a mine, and the thought was great excitement to put us in these cages and take us right down to the level of the coal face. And I remember I was absolutely petrified, and I couldn't think of any worse job when I left school, which is to go down the mine. Now, your dad was, as you say, forced down there. He didn't have any choice. Anybody with a minor claustrophobic streak, it must have been terrifying for them.
I remember my father not having a particularly good head for heights when we went on family holidays, and I think now about how he must have felt in this 1,500-foot descent in a cage in the complete darkness as they were lowered into this coal mine, which was actually one of the deepest deep coal mines in Silesia. And so the opening section of the book opens with his recurring nightmare of actually going in that cage on that long, shaky descent.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And as I say, what I love about the book is that you build all the factual, historical, where your dad was. The researchers, as you've said there in the last 5 minutes or so, your research, you wasn't a guy that just jumped on the internet. You was a guy that jumped on an aeroplane or jumped on a train, and you actually went to these places. You went to Lambsdorff, you went to Bittem as it is now, bleak places even these days, I believe. I'm fortunate enough as well. I've went around a few of those camps and work camps and things myself through my own writing as well, and but very commendable. And then you weave that story, and then you bring your father out of retirement, and then, is it a fair word to say, then you have invented Trip? Now, I'm not going to give too much away because there's a lovely twist in this book, and I'm not going to tell you future or potential readers about it, but just in as many words as to say, you then take your father back on this fictitious trip that sadly never ever happened.
That's right, and he was looking for a companion, and I think, as I said at the beginning, I think he was looking to me to be his companion, and that never took place. I was far too busy at the time to go with my dad on a boys' road trip. So in the story, I've weaved in his brother, my Uncle Jeff, and the two boys do the trip that perhaps I should have done.
Yeah,
and I use Jeff, his younger brother, to bounce ideas off and what it must have been like. What this book is about, more than military facts, although I have tried to keep the faith and try and keep the military facts accurate, as you say, but I've also tried to bounce off other characters what it must have felt like to have been a conscript at the age of 19, 20, going through all of these experiences. And I've used all of these other characters: Mary, the long stay mental health patient, his brother Jeff, and another German ex-POW.
What's his name? Herman, was it? I think.
Helmut.
Helmut, that was it. And right. The Polish girl, the young Polish girl that you bring into the story, that's fascinating as well. It's a real good chemistry between the old British prisoner of war and this young girl that's got very strict like moral views and very anti the Russians, very anti the Germans, and it's quite wonderful, John. It's quite wonderful the way you've portrayed this book. It really was a fabulous read.
Yeah, so Marnia, who is the young girl who's the daughter of a Polish taxi driver, kind of adopts my dad as a surrogate grandfather figure.
That's correct.
She never had a grandfather because he was abducted by the Russian forces, which was one of the tragedies of World War II. As the Russians advanced through what was then Germany, they pretty much plundered the country. They left the coal mine intact because they needed that for their own resources, but they stole a lot of the human beings and took them across to the Urals. And so I've used Marnia as a way of exploring, recent Polish history, which some of which is very tragic.
Yeah, but it's as I say, it all makes for a fascinating tale. As we're as I said, I don't want to give too much away because there's some lovely little twists. I will give a little clue away on your book cover that you can see behind me here. It says, "For readers of Ian McEwan's Atonement." Now, as I say, for anybody that's read that book, I do see why your publishers put that on. I'm not going to give it away, but I'd see why your publishers put that on. And I think anybody that's read Atonement and then reads The Psychiatrist will certainly see a few comparisons, but they certainly won't be disappointed in the book. They certainly won't. A couple of questions before you go. I think we're getting up to the end of the half an hour now. First question, is there a book 2 in you, John? You've made a fantastic job of this one. Is there a book 2? Is it something that you want to go on to, or is it a case of, well, that's my ambition. I did owe my father this book, and I think you did, because there's probably a regret that you didn't go away with him, and this is the next best thing you could have done for the guy. So is there a book 2, and if so, what's it going to be about?
I think there is, possibly. I mean, this has taken a decade, as we've just talked about, but there are, in the course of the research, you come across many other families equally affected with equally hard, tragic stories to tell. So we'll have to see. Yeah,
and you can get this book in Amazon online. It's in the Kindle format. Yeah, all, as the strapline goes, available at all good bookshops near you. And tell me one other question. Oh, no, one thing I want to mention is your website, because your website that you've built around 140 Regiment, which was your father's regiment, and indeed the retreat to Dunkirk, the Battle of Cassel, the aftermath, all that. And you've actually got little biographies of all the key characters. The real key characters in this book actually did exist, John. But what's your tell us your website again.
Well, my research, first of all, culminated in a website, which is a factual historical record of who was where, when, and what they did. And my father's regiment was remarkable, I think. It was a London-based Territorial Army regiment, but it had several characters within it who were truly larger than life and whose story is really not properly known, because a lot of them spent their war in captivity. Mm-hmm. And so they weren't offered the chance of the heroism of World War II. They didn't become famous generals and so on. But in their own right, they were quite remarkable. And just researching and visiting the workplaces and the homes of some of the officers that commanded my father, I felt very strongly that these men's stories needed to be told. And I've told their stories on a website, which, if you type in a search engine 140 Field Regiment Royal Artillery, it will come up. And it was through that website that I actually had quite a lot of contact. There's a contact page there, and quite a lot of descendants made contact with me through that website. And some of their stories are weaved into The Psychiatrist.
Okay, great. Well, we'll put a link on to your to your website, John. We'll put a link on this video, and it will go up on YouTube. You guys will be able to download it. It will also be podcast. And I think, as I said at the beginning, it'll be split into 10-minute sections, because apparently that's the only attention span that people have these days, is the 10 minutes. But I'm sure anybody with a significant interest into World War II, or indeed stories of heroism, stories of brutality, you know, revenge, all that sort of thing, anything historical, I think your book ticks a lot of boxes. And I wish you all the best with the Booker Prize. I would love to see it entered for the long list, or even the short list. That would be tremendous. I can't remember a last time a World War II book won the Booker Prize. You might be able to tell me, no?
I'm not sure there is. I suppose Atonement, I'm not sure if that got bookered.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think that was entered. I'm not sure if it ever won. Okay, John, well, you know, all the best with the Booker Prize. And I sincerely hope you do get longlisted for that. That would be a phenomenal achievement. But regardless whether you do or not, I think your book is a phenomenal achievement. And if there is a place where your old boy's looking down, I think he's going to be rightly proud of his book.
Thank you very much, Ken.